It should just be like one of those squirrel camps with you just like looking into it.
That's right.
All right, so let's bring to order the City Council Public Safety Committee of this November 20th, 2014. Do we have the minutes from the previous meeting? My apologies for not looking.
I think I may have missed a couple meetings, but I think I did email you guys.
A couple, yeah. I
Yeah,
can't remember
from
who
the
was
last, yeah.
Well, let's skip that and then we'll put it on to the next one.
All right.
Okay, public speak time. I
Yes.
guess we acknowledge President McCoy being here.
Julie.
Duly noted. Street acceptance, so we got the Paul Street extension that came through. Did everybody have a chance to drive down?
I did.
I did.
I did this afternoon or this evening, and I noticed that I will say that there is probably a neighbor there that is not all too happy about having the extension there from what I,
Oh, the one that had the sign out in the road?
the sign and then the basketball hoop out in the
Right,
road,
right.
which,
There was a
yeah.
cone that was at the end of a certain driveway. There definitely seems to be some activity going on.
Seems to be a little bit of, yeah, something.
Well, and the other thing is that we don't have information from Jim Gracia yet
Right,
either,
I mean,
because he's away,
because to me,
so.
unlike the other one we did, which was there for 14 years.
Right.
This one is brand new. I mean, it looks good to my eye, but what do I know from an engineering standpoint? I mean,
It does, but they're still building,
And they
so
still
there are
have
a
it.
lot
It
of trucks
looks
and
like
stuff
there's about
going up
4.
over the curbs.
If you look at the post, it looks like there's maybe 4 more lots or so up there.
Yeah,
They
that's
look
what it
like
looked like to me.
Yeah,
And there's also a street light at the very end.
yeah, I
at
saw
the
that.
roundabout.
Very
that,
pretty street light.
Wasn't on, because I went in the
Oh, you
dark.
went to-
On my way here.
There you go.
I will eventually get used to it getting dark and cold.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can move forward with this right now without getting some input from Jim,
Jim wasn't gonna be back on like Monday or something.
and he's not back until Monday, so.
Well, let's move this up on the agenda because really, considering it just came down October 16th, this is just November 20th. It's only been in our hands for, what, one meeting?
One
Second
meeting.
one meeting?
Yeah.
So I don't think that it would be a major problem with holding it off until Jim
Okay.
can weigh in on it.
Do you want to do that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that in a form of motion that we table this until we get the rest of the information from Jim and whoever else.
I'll second.
Second? Any other
Okay.
discussion? Seeing none? All right, so we have a motion on the table to table this until the next meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. So this, our next meeting item is this change to the city's traffic rules and regulations to no all-night parking. We got this last night. This So these no parking hours would be citywide.
That's what I was gonna ask, because I know the mayor, when she talked last night,
It just
spoke like
seemed
it was just
specifically about the
basic.
parking lot, but the way that I read it now is that it would be
Because I had
citywide.
read that before, and I said to myself, I thought it was citywide, but the mayor talked specifically about Payson, so, I mean, not that it's really a... So would that be like on-street parking too, John? or-
That's what it seems to be, is that it would be for everywhere. So that means if somebody decides to leave their car downtown for whatever reason,
Which is,
it could be towed.
so now, if I read that, is prohibited from 2 to 6 in the AM? In this, or no, 2 to 6.
Yeah, currently it's between 2 AM and 6 AM, except during plowing, removal, and parking is additionally prohibited between 6 and 8.
Oh, I see.
We
So
like to
it's
request
up
the
to-
new park hours simply between the hours of 5 and 7 AM, regardless of snow removal. So,
Because I know at one time, and maybe, I don't know, Joey, been around, or Joy, there was a lot of, I won't say a lot of complaints, but there was problems around Main Street, wasn't there, with like people, or the Silver Spoon area, of people, you know, some of the renters parking, and I don't know how that ever was
that's
rectified.
actually the first spot that I thought of.
I don't know how
I
it
mean,
ever was rectified, because people like that live above there were like parking, and then they weren't moving them at,
All the time from.
like at 2
Right.
in the morning, they were coming out later, and the restaurants didn't care, but once they started opening, then the spots were up. So that almost seems like it would be a help to that at 5, I mean, again,
We don't have a lot of enforcement of our parking rules, though. Like, I mean, there
Well-
aren't a lot of parking tickets that are put out. I
Well,
don't know how much
sometimes
time-
there are.
Right.
do we have, and maybe this is not part of this, but do we have, like, most cities have like a 24-hour lot, so like, again, I'm thinking of the people, because we seem to be encouraging people, I mean, that seems to be the new encouragement, is to encourage people
Yeah.
to live around the
I think the only
downtown
24-hour
area.
lot is the one that is up near Whiskers, the Cottage
Okay,
Street
the
lot.
one on Cottage Street, you can park there
Yeah,
24.
yeah.
Because I was wondering, you know, again, what do you do if you know, if you're renting a...
But I know, like, working at the breast cat, like, there's definitely people who leave their car because of, you know, they decide to take a cab or whatever, because it's just safer for them to do that. And I'd hate to kind of
Right.
make that not an option.
That's a good point, safety wise, that sometimes you just shouldn't be, there shouldn't
Right.
be the impetus to drive.
Especially now that we're sort of becoming entertainment, you know.
Right.
There's like that combination, you wanna protect the business owners, and just people aren't in their spots come business time, at the same time, you don't wanna,
Somebody
at
say,
2 o'clock in the morning saying, I gotta get my car out of here.
I gotta go because, you know,
Yeah.
I shouldn't drive, but if I don't get
Right.
out of here, it's gonna be towed in the
Right,
morning. Maybe
right.
give them that one extra incentive to do something
Right.
that probably isn't in their best interest.
But, I mean, it shall be unlawful for the driver of any vehicle to park their vehicle in public parking lots from 2 to 6 AM. And that definitely happens at the Cottage Street lot. I mean, definitely people park there overnight.
See, I'd be interested in having the police chief kind of like explain what
The rationale.
What
I
his,
think both, and the
what his,
mayor-
Absolutely.
and the mayor too,
Yeah.
what is the enforcement policy of the city? In other words,
And have him respond to the whole, you know,
Oh,
2
my-
bars right there. I think that's a safe idea to have people, if you can't drive, I don't think you should drive or get towed,
Right.
you know?
No, I think the towing is, and my understanding from last night, and it was kind of just, I wish, you know, I thought to ask the question last night, but it definitely seemed to me like it was just because of promoting Payson as a public parking
Right,
situation,
okay.
and that these were gonna be the rules for that, but if these are gonna be citywide, then I think you're right. I think we do need to talk to the chief.
I mean, he seems in favor, but I guess I'd like to get his input of do they enforce it on a daily basis, and do they?
Well, and are there signs for these new rules would have to be all over town?
Right. How many
You know?
signs does that? You know, like, I'm trying to think around Cottage in Maine, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's signs, you know, I'm not usually out at that hour.
Maybe that's just it, maybe if you change something citywide, you don't have to put signs everywhere, it's just citywide.
Unless they
So-
say 2 to 6 now, when you gotta change it.
Well, and that was something that the mayor was saying, is that there was a lot of language that was gonna have to go on to these
Right.
signs, and that this was gonna simplify it. So it looks like they wanna change the language from prohibiting parking between the hours of 2 and 6, except during snowing, prohibitively, between 6 and 8. So they just wanna get rid of both of those parameters and just make one parameter, which is from 5 to 7 AM,
So
regardless
there'll
of
be
snow.
no additional for snow? I mean,
Well,
No,
this is 5 PM to 7 AM? Is
Five-
that what they mean?
I think it's probably 5 AM.
Or 5 AM to 7 AM?
Yeah,
so just 2 hours as opposed to 4 hours, and then in snow, 6 hours, which, again, you know, knowing snow removal, how they could do the whole downtown in 2 hours is not gonna happen, you know, it's not- especially. when
Well, they
we
can
got
also
Buffalo
pull their,
Wings.
yeah, but they can also pull their snow emergencies. Where they,
And then they can- yes, they
where
can
they
declare
can
them
say
in, so
no
you can't have
no
parking
on-street parking.
Till further
to-
notice.
Which they can do.
No, that, right, they
Yeah.
let 'em-
So they
let
can
'em
always do that.
Well,
Because
then
they can
last
do that under
year,
a snow
there was a
emergency.
woman who was towed on Union Street, and she was like, there's no sign, there was no information, there was nothing. And she had to really dig around on our website.
They had,
to find
they
out.
Yeah, I
have
remember. She
snow
was-
parking
wasn't really-
signs when you
Wasn't so
come
much she
into the
was
city.
complaining is, she felt she was,
Set up.
right.
They have snow parking signs when you come into the city, and I think that's the only place that you need to post them,
Yeah.
is when you come in and they have the snow, because there's one in front of my house. And that's why I know that. Or there was one until the storm came through.
Well,
I
this
think
says, you know,
Got blown away.
upon any
Yeah, it was
street
there.
within an area which has been marked or signed.
But
It seems so strange, why?
But
do you-
people actually, believe it or not, you know where I live, Joe, on
Yeah.
a dead end street, and people have got tickets for parking in the road overnight there, like periodically.
Really?
You know,
Yeah.
and again, I don't know
Like
what.
parking tickets, like straight
Like
up?
a parking ticket for being, so there must be some, in other words,
Where's that?
on Highland Avenue, which is a dead end, you know, people have parked out in the street,
Top of George's, right?
you know, yeah, but right in the residential.
No, I know where Highland Avenue
Down further in
is.
the residential. in other
Down
words,
by
people-
Flurry's old property?
Well, it was actually midway down the
Where the
street, there was a
Boy
neighbor
Scouts?
who was out there parked and got a ticket in the morning, that for like overnight, you know, maybe it was during one of these snow emergencies, I can't really recall. I don't think it was because it was like trucks, it was like during that hours or something, so I don't know what, is
Well,
there,
this says
during the
no
week?
person should park or allow a vehicle to remain standing in parking spaces upon the following designated sections of Main Street for a longer period than 1 hour. I mean, that's not enough time to go in and have dinner.
No. Unless you're a fast eater.
That's how they post dinner ice cream.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre too, why just, if you're 2 hours of no parking? If they need it for snow emergency, they can call snow emergency.
Yeah, it's not like we
But,
don't,
like,
we
what are
don't
we gonna do in
sweep,
2 hours?
sweep the streets
Yeah.
every, you know, like Boston,
Right.
on Wednesdays and Mondays, the street sweepers come by, so you can't park on even side and odd side.
What were they saying, what was she saying? I thought, again, I hadn't read it, that it was all kind of brought about the parking around the new.
The boardwalk to
And- well,
kind
and this says-
of mark Payson's lot so that people would know they could use it. That
I
was
think it
that
is-
was the tenor of her.
I think
of her
their
comment.
intent is just for the parking lot. I don't think they're seeing that it then affects the rest of the downtown.
So that, you think the intent is.
Well,
that Payson's
simplifying
lot
the no
will just-
parking hours at the municipal parking lots will simplify the sign language and future enforcement. So, I mean, that's their bottom line in this, that
On
it's
this front
simplified.
page.
Yeah.
It talks here, Joe, about Payson,
Okay.
just about Payson.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's just B. They're saying, this is only in B, and it's on the second page. It says it's just going to affect B. So, and B says specifically, unlawful for driver of any vehicle to park said vehicle in public parking lots.
Yeah.
Okay,
From
so
2 AM to 6 AM except during snow plowing and removal operations. During snow plowing and removal operations, parking shall be prohibited between 6 AM and 8 PM.
So that clarifies, they're not
So that
changing on-street
clarifies it,
parking.
it's just the
Public.
parking,
Public
Public.
parking lots.
Union parking lot.
How many public lots do we?
Well, Union and then now this one, because they're gonna, that's what the
Cottage.
signage is gonna be for here, 50 Payson. Because they're losing the 6 spaces because of the boardwalk over on that side.
Mhm.
They're gonna put signage up that this 50 Payson Avenue will become a
Public.
public parking lot, as well as Cottage Street.
Because that's what the mayor was
So our
talking about,
public parking
encouraging
lots,
people to be
we
able.
only have two.
We only have 2,
We have Cottage.
Cottage
50
and
Payson.
now this one. So,
The-
that's
right
not
now-
unreasonable.
But right now, so it sounds like right now, technically, people are not supposed to leave their car overnight
Yeah.
at Union Street.
Anywhere, yeah, right
Anywhere.
now.
They can't on the street.
In the
they
park,
can't-
yeah.
But you said they don't tend to enforce the Union Street one, or at least Union
No, I
or
don't think so.
Cottage? One by the brass cat.
Right, like, I mean,
Right.
I would say either one, Union or Cottage,
What
or
is
Main
that?
Street.
Is that, is that
Um,
Union right there, or is that Cottage?
Cottage Street is the one by Whiskers, that's the Cottage
That's-
Street.
Oh, that's
lot.
Cottage Street, right.
So that's the one.
The,
Okay.
the only thing that I maybe might have a little bit of an issue with is the hours of 5 to 7. How many people you know, might need to use that lot before 7 if they've gotta go to work for 7 or something. I'm just, you know, throwing it out there. We don't have any, right now, do we have any places that serve breakfast or anything? You know, like on, you know, Silver Spoon is open at, what, 4:30, 5
I'm
in
sure
the
they open
morning?
early, probably.
Right.
To serve breakfast?
I think that, well, it's a little ways. The
Yeah.
diner there is open,
The diner's open early.
gotta be open early, because a few days they're open like 24 hours.
Right, but they have their own.
But they got their own parking.
They have
so
their
I don't
own
think
parking,
People
so
are
that's
gonna
not
park here.
gonna-
and walk away.
No, yeah.
Trying
But
to
I'm
think
just saying, if anybody, like even Amy's or something, if she decided to open up for breakfast, usually breakfast places open early.
What is
Wasn't-
the problem with somebody parking overnight in those lots?
I don't know. I mean,
But if you need, I mean, obviously. you need
other than snow removal.
Snow, of course, of course.
Other than
but
snow
other than
removal,
that,
I don't see,
Yeah.
Maybe
I
they,
don't know.
maybe they do that like in a case like this when the apartments across the street are finished, maybe they'd be afraid that people would tend to park over here all night as opposed to, you get what I'm saying, and not only
Yeah.
park overnight, but park,
continually.
Yeah.
what, leave their car
Consecutively.
there for a few days. Where
Right.
this, you kinda gotta get your car
I have a
out.
friend, you know, can you watch my car for a week while I go away?
I'm going away to, right, I'm
Yeah.
going away to,
Yeah.
on a trip, so I'll
Maybe
park
that's
this,
why,
I'll park in the
yeah.
municipal lot. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's,
So
yeah.
would a no more than 24-hour thing make more sense than not an
I
overnight?
think that's even harder to enforce, because.
Yeah, but how can you tell?
I'm sure it's one of those, and again,
Yeah.
you shouldn't say I'm sure,
Yeah, how
'cause without
can you
talking to
tell
people, it's
if
probably
a car's
something
been
that
in
they're not
24
gonna
hours?
enforce unless there's a complaint or, but that's not, but I don't know, I shouldn't say that because maybe they would.
Well, again, we only got this last night, so we certainly, we
All right.
can have the initial, we can have our initial talk or discussion about it now, but we can continue the discussion and ask Karen and anybody of the other parties, the planning people come in, the chief, come in and give us their,
Opinion or.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the
Reasoning.
chief specifically.
as to why, you know,
Because I guess I'm going back now, because I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, these are already part, would schools lots be public lots? I would assume so, so maybe you get what I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
so those would be public lots also,
Yeah,
and then
so
down
we
by,
have to define.
eventually, yes.
down by the
So we have
bandstand,
to
or
define-
whatever,
Probably
you wanna
be
park
good.
down by the band.
That's right, the band, that's a
But-
public parking spot.
But once they redo behind the mills, there's a possibility of people parking down there more.
Right,
I mean, right
so-
now, I don't think too many people would park down
Okay.
there.
So I think this is a little willy-nilly. I think if we're gonna do something like this, we maybe should start thinking a little bit forward, look, as you proposed, Dan.
Define the lots.
Let's define the lots. And then let's get the reasoning behind why
Exactly.
these certain hours were put out there, was it?
I mean, because I guess, I think it would be the mayor would, I mean, there's a lot of people I can see, I guess 2 o'clock, you could be on the boardwalk in the summer if you got out,
Right.
look for a while, but I mean,
Well, and should we look at this only 1 hour parking downtown? I mean, should that be 2?
because I think there are, I'm trying to,
Well, maybe we ought to do a comprehensive looking at it.
at the parking.
And would this be us or would it be ordinance?
Well, I think if we could take a look at it, I think it's gonna be sort of like the thing that happened with finance with the salaries. I think finance made the recommendations, but it actually has to go through ordinance before the ordinance is changed.
Right.
Right.
So I think that would be the same thing here. No matter what we do on this, I think it's gonna be our recommendation, but probably it's still gotta go to one meeting of ordinance to, I would think.
Yeah, because we changed.
Because it's gonna, you're actually
Yeah.
changing the ordinance.
Right.
An hour doesn't seem long enough if we're promoting people to come downtown and have dinner and walk downtown, get an ice cream, do our walk and all that kind of thing. I mean, if we decided to just turn around and
Oh,
they could just start right.
you're on Main Street and you're going into the Silver Spoon, you're having breakfast. First you gotta wait to get seated.
First you're
because
waiting an
usually
hour.
Because usually it's crowded and whatever. So you're waiting maybe 15, 20 minutes, you get in. By the time you get waited on and get your breakfast, you're over the hour.
Yeah.
And it would be the same scenario, I would imagine, across the street where Casey's place is.
Yeah, I think that
You
would
know,
be.
people wanna go in and
You'd
have
be
a
more apt to get
leisurely
out for a breakfast
dinner and-
in an hour than you would for a dinner.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna go in and have a leisurely dinner, you wanna relax, you know, and take your
I
time.
guess we gotta look at the signs. Do they say 1 hour all the time, or 1 hour between certain times? You know, I guess I haven't really.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's something we should look at, is the Main Street thing.
How about on Cottage and Union? What's it say there? Do we know?
I think it's the same.
Same like an hour?
And actually, while we're talking about all of these, our Mechanic Street,
Mhm.
the lot has been put in,
Mhm.
and the signs are still up there with the parking on the other side. That needs to be taken out before winter.
Right. That was-
So changes. And Joe never, I felt badly, Joe never did anything he said he was gonna do up on Coverfield. And it's also that woman who's initiated everything.
Well, the
She eventually
crosswalks.
just moved. She eventually moved, because she felt the traffic, she was too concerned about her kids.
So we.
Really?
The
No
first
signage
one
went up there
is-
either?
Because they were supposed to put a sign away from the corner and remake
But
I haven't been up there.
yeah.
So I think that probably we should want Joe in on this discussion too, because if we're gonna do this, we might as well look at everything and get it all into one.
Yeah,
big-
winter parking is in effect from November 1st to April 1st of each year, and any vehicle on the streets of the city
That must have been what they got the
between
person
the
in my
hours of
neighborhood.
1 a.m. to
Right.
6
That
a.m.
must have been what they got my neighbor for.
Our bars close at 2.
How bizarre, yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
most of ours know it too? Or all,
They can.
I mean, they can stay open
They can
till
stay
some-
open till 2.
which is a problem.
So that means anybody who's parked on Cottage Street after 1 o'clock is
I mean, some of these
violating.
regulations are so strange, because you know, like an hour, no one is tagging these cars when they got there. you know,
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Those are tough ones to enforce.
I can't imagine anyone enforcing it. Now, I guess if you have something blanking, like you see a car on the side of the street and it's 6
Well, I
a.m.,
know
you can take it.
sometimes they use like
They can
chalk.
chalk them, right, they chalk them
On
like,
tires.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
like at the Cape where I go, they chalk them down just in the
Oh.
summer months.
Yeah.
Right.
Winter months, you can park.
Exactly.
You're gonna leave it,
Right.
you're gonna leave it now and not pick it up as
Yeah.
long as you get it out there by June
So, like,
1st
right.
or Memorial Day, you're all set.
Well, and it says if you're found in violation, it doesn't say you're gonna get a ticket, it says you're gonna get towed. You're gonna get a ticket.
Hmm.
So I can tell my neighbor, boy, got you a parade.
Right.
Well, I think we should take one more meeting like Joy, at least, and
Yeah.
kind of read it over individually and maybe take a, at your leisure, take a ride and kind of look at some of the problems, and then the next time we meet, we can kind of see what, maybe we want to expand this to be a little more comprehensive.
Yeah, and
than
define
just-
the lots, does it include the schools?
And while we're doing it, we might as well just ask him about all these other things.
Yeah, like he's
For
not-
instance, the one as opposed to the 2, because of the
bar.
establishments being open and,
Right, should that be 2 to 6 rather than?
yeah, and then
6?
what's the enforcement policy from the
So-
chief? You know, do you just like send them out and look, or is it a complaint driven? I mean, whatever, things like
Because
that.
theoretically, tonight, if you went to a bar till 2 o'clock,
Right,
you're in violation.
you're in violation.
Right on.
That's right.
Because it's after November 1st.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're really getting any snow tonight. I'll make a motion that we put the traffic's, I guess I'll call it the traffic rules and regulations review over to the next meeting so we can do a little more research and
And get
into
some
what
feedback
type of
from the
feedback from
department
the
heads.
departments and that, and see if we want to make it a little more
From us.
comprehensive than just the basic line.
What's the name of that parking lot behind the mills? Where the hat shell is, what do we call
Is it
that?
called,
It's not Little
It's Millside parking, I would say, it's the Millside Park.
Mill. It is
Millside
Millside.
So
Park?
it's Millside parking?
Lot.
I agree with you.
Logic, I think, maybe. And
You can
again,
try with that.
who's second?
I made the motion, Joey.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
No?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so street acceptance protocol drafted comments, what we've all been waiting for. Okay, so, the draft was sent out to Attorney Fitzgibbon,
Mhm.
and Joe Popinski.
Mhm.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Pipchinsky.
Pipchinsky. And Jessica Allen, and the planning board. So this is what, I emailed this to you, and that was fine, what we had for a request. And I'll just read it. So thank you in advance for your time. As many of you know, we've been looking at the current process. The subcommittee decided a tiered rollout would result in the best document. This is a rough draft completed by us with the assistance of Jim Gracia. This is the next stage in the document's creation. Planning Board, Department of Public Works, Legal. Please submit all notes and feel free to edit directly on the document itself. Public Safety will compile all the input and discuss in subcommittee meetings. Once that has happened, we'll fold in the other departments, so we evolve to do it again. We're hoping this can be completed in 2 weeks. So Planning Department, we asked them to, we need to look at what makes the most sense logistically. So if they could please pay special attention to how we have the document moving through the system, that would be most helpful. That's where we were looking at, like, does it make sense to go to the clerk and then back to this or back and
The flow.
the flow. And I wrote that I'm sure we've doubled on some things or missed a step entirely. We'd also like to make sure that we're using the correct same terminology that the board uses, because we've used a couple of different documents, so we just want to make sure we use the same language
Right.
throughout. Legal, the request was to please make sure our request for an application fee, how we would charge snow ice mitigation, and how the process flows is legally compliant, does not place an undue burden on the petitioner. And DPW, please help calculate the snow ice mitigation fees. We've left them blank, and that we've covered all aspects of the inspection you feel need to be covered. And that's where we were. Please note the goal is to make this, not make this income generating, to make sure we don't continue to lose money in the process. More streets accepted equals more money from the state. The fee would cover the cost of our city solicitor. Snow ice fees would cover us financially for when we need to maintain the road in the interest of public safety of our citizens. We look forward to your input, blah, 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 blah. So, the attorney got back very quickly, and he said, his name has no S on it, check it. He would delete section 22, this section which, by the way, does not apply to cities' concerns notice to abutters. The section itself is fine, but it sounds like section 22 applies to the request for a hearing itself. I delete the reference to section 22 and simply reference chapter 82 itself. I have no problem, on the other hand, with reference to section 22 in the next section.
Wait a minute, hold it, delete section 22.
And I printed these out so I can hand them
Oh,
right
good,
over to you.
because then
So
what I will
you
do
can
is
put-
I will just
Yeah.
scan them and put them right in.
put the email right in there.
You got it.
If you want to. So what he's talking about is under documentation,
Mhm.
it's a letter O.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Section 22.
Right, so it says certificate of notice signed by the applicant's attorney and all property owners and abutters have been notified of the public hearing. But he's saying just to get rid of section 2,
Section 22?
section 22.
You just go with the 82.
Yep. and
Where
just
Where
go
is,
with
what
82.
page is section 22?
It's page 6.
See, mine's a little different than yours. I don't know if I have a different.
Okay, I have JK,
I do too.
IJK.
We keep going to O.
But then I got special requirements, I don't have. them.
Oh.
Alrighty.
So maybe
Well,
that's a
somehow
newer,
we're not
So
on
you
the
know
same
what?
page.
maybe that's a newer version?
This is a newer version. I did
It
the
is.
edits and I put it together. And you
Okay.
guys
Is that
have
the new version?
electronic.
Yes.
He has an electronic
Do you,
copy.
is it marked at all?
No.
Can I run it upstairs and
Yeah,
get it?
sure.
And I'll make a copy.
Well,
for
there's some
you.
spaghetti sauce on it.
Well, that's,
There's those marks.
let me just
Okay.
run this, I'll rent 2 copies, so you don't
Was
need
it
a copy,
good?
you don't need a copy.
No,
I'll just
I
run one
don't.
for Joy and I, and then we can.
Yeah,
go
thank
there.
you.
Sorry.
Feel free to talk about anything else.
Well, I have the electronic copy,
Including
I'm sure it's
myself.
in here.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, this is the copy that,
I better bring my keys, because I don't think I can get through the door without them.
no,
So do you have Jess's letter?
I do.
When did you send that out, Jen?
22nd? October 22nd? That's off the
Oh,
top of my.
October 22nd.
That email, when I made the request for looking for.
No, the 21st.
This was
Third?
her initial email.
No, add,
And then when I asked for the stuff from the planning department,
so
she
you
just said
see
they
the
agree with her.
attached, hi Jen, regarding the draft street accept police develop by public safety committee, well, I think it's good first step in thinking this press, this is from Jessica.
Yep, that's the one I just handed to Joe.
Okay.
So what I did is, I printed out the one that she gave me. I didn't really want electronic copies of this because
Right.
of this kind of confusion going on, but c'est la vie.
Yeah, because this is the one that she passed on to.
Yep. So she has an attachment on that email? Unless I just forwarded it to you.
I think you just,
So what I did is I printed out her copy where she has her notes
to
on
me.
it.
I don't know if you sent it to us.
So it is kind of funny that she said that, you know, she had confusion as to the steps, and it's like, well, that's specifically what we're planning to do.
So is this, you know how like most ordinances, like when they have the document, of course it's an ordinance per se, and then they scratch out what they're changing? Does that exist for this yet, or are you starting from brand new so you can't?
Brand new.
So that you can't, okay. So
Oh, we
what-
have a copy of the, I don't have a copy of the old one with me, but it's just one page.
I
It's a
did.
very.
Oh, that's.
Oh, this,
Maybe I saw it, it's in a strange large font.
No, like the, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just one page.
Right.
oh, yeah, the original? Yeah, no, I have it in there, probably. I'm thinking. I've got all of the. Let's see, I know.
Yeah, those are copies of other ones. No, I mean, from whole cloth.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was only like- it was
I think
only-
Dave Sullivan, wasn't it? Wasn't his
Yeah.
name on
It
it?
was
Yeah.
one page of, yeah,
And that's why we started looking at it, because it was just kind of
Yeah,
very,
right.
very vague.
But I did look, so as I remember from talking to Barbara, right now, people come in and then Barb disseminates it to the different departments. And did you want to change that the applicant brings with the different departments?
We're trying to figure out what makes it easiest and best for the applicant themselves, because
Right.
what we're finding, what happened is that they get sent to these different departments, but there's no follow-up that happens, so they just end up just kind of out there in the ether,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that if we have a process where it goes to this department, it's signed and comes back, it at least keeps the
Right.
application moving,
Mhm.
you know, rather than like, oh, we didn't.
plus
get to it,
everybody
and this
will know
happened.
where it is in the process, including the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think right now there's any way of really tracking the application.
Yeah, short of Barb's.
It's kind of almost
We just
like,
got respect.
it's kind of like a little willy-nilly as to how,
Well, look, I mean,
processes.
here's one that we just got, and it's like, we can't do anything with it. We
right.
don't have information from
We don't
anybody
have
else.
anybody signing
Right.
off on anything, we don't have
So in some
all the
sense,
information.
we should be the last ones to get
And
that.
that's not how we are in this.
We should be the
By
last
time
ones
we
to get it, and
We
everything
get a
should
list that
be,
it's been seen
done.
by,
Yeah.
And we've actually added to it, you know, we're gonna let the chief of police like sign in and be like, listen, how do you feel about where the parking is? Or, you know, where are the fire hydrants in regards to
Which would be the
the
fire
conservation
department.
commission, if something's affiliated somehow, you know, so that it does actually kind of hit all those departments.
So is it, I mean, is it becoming more cumbersome? Are you adding more departments?
We are.
We are.
Oh.
Well, our thought process, remind me if I'm wrong, is that we felt that everything unduly landed in Jim's lap. For Jim to check things that he didn't put in place.
Mm.
I mean, the process begins with the planning board, where they put all of these conditions in place. Jim is water and sewer and engineering. Jim's only concern should be the road, the water, and sewer, and the engineering piece. He shouldn't have to go out there to make sure that the sidewalks are in place, that the planning board said need to be there, or that tree lines have to be there. That's really not in his purview to do. And
And, I mean, the last one we did, we went out there and it's like, there's a big drop off at the end of the day.
Right.
Like, how is this?
yeah,
Which really should have been the police, but would just take it right out there. They
so
would-
who dropped the ball on it? So
The neighbor said only one car.
yeah, so that's, yeah, and it was the owner of the
The owner of
property
the property.
next door.
Right into his yard.
Forgot that.
You can't even make that stuff.
Yeah,
up.
no, you don't. But, it was like these big pieces, holes were in existence, so that's
But
what we were finding.
The
so-
other thing is, we did make a giant document, and our theory is that we're gonna make this big, put everything that comes up, and then we can edit what we don't need. We'd rather have it there and not need it than realize later down that it's like. oh,
Kinda
yeah,
cover the
we
bases.
need to Doing that, so right now it is big, but then it's like, okay, so now we've got everything covered, what can we edit out to make this efficient? So yeah, absolutely, first draft, it's everything, everything at the wall, for sure. And we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from people, so. To continue, let's see.
I know I talked to Jess briefly, because I was talking to her about the ZBA, but she admitted she actually was gonna come tonight, but she wanted to, but she couldn't make it.
She told me she was gonna be here at 6:30.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
Or she emailed, she said, will we still be here at
So,
6:30? She had some meeting
The
going on.
comments from the city attorney were
Right.
on section 22.
They are, and I'll continue with that, because we have.
Okay, so that's here.
Um,
Oh, right.
So on 3, under the special requirements section, Roman numeral 3,
But could you just go back to O for a second? So we took
Sure.
out,
on page 6, section 2N, Roman numeral 2N, I would delete section 22. That section, which, by the way, does not apply to cities' concerns, notice to abutters. The section itself, but it sounds like section 22. So it's literally just
Oh.
erasing the words
Oh.
section
So
So
22.
general laws, chapter 82 remains.
period.
Right, and that's exactly what I wanted the attorney
Right.
to check, though.
Okay, so
to see
just
if that
general
works.
laws, chapter 82, period.
Not section.
With a return to the city clerk not less than.
Right.
Okay, so it's removed.
So he delete the reference to section 22 and simply reference chapter 82 itself. I have no problem, on the other hand, with reference to section 22 in the next section, 2O.
Okay, so he wants to keep it here and all,
Keep it there.
but not in it.
Yeah. And this was legal language that we had adopted from a couple of other programs, and
And
that's really what I
section
wanted him to do.
22, and N is fine.
So, yeah, he said to delete it, just cross it off here.
Oh, an N. I
And
thought
then
he
keep
wanted
that
it
one
in
there.
O.
He said, oh,
Okay.
I might have transposed it when I read it, I apologize.
So I'm sorry, which one do you keep it in? Keep it in?
The
Keep
first
it in
one,
O.
we delete,
Get rid of
Okay, so
N
keep it in
last.
O.
keep it in O,
But-
delete it in.
Okay.
Okay, so then his third is on section 3, special requirements section.
Special requirement. This is if we plow.
Section 3, where is that?
Change the language for registered land easements as followed.
Okay.
Is this in the event the city deems necessary to provide snow and ice? Is that the one?
So where it says
I
an
think it's just, at the
easement.
top it says 3, Joy. It's like.
Yep, she's
Three
on the-
special
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
requirements, yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So an easement running to the inhabitants of the city of Easthampton for all purposes for which a public way or street are now or may hereafter be used, including the right to install.
So that's what he changed it to?
Mhm.
Good, 'cause it's like what? Okay.
Yep.
So this is, the change is here?
No, I don't
No,
know.
I don't think so, okay. Yeah, it's
So he wants it changed to what? An easement running to the inhabitants of the city of Easthampton?
Right? So after City of Easthampton, for all purposes for which a public way,
For which,
yeah,
instead of,
or street
For all
are
purposes.
now,
are now, a public way are now,
which a public way or street are now or may hereafter be used, including the right to install. So that's the,
are you gonna?
yeah, we'll make all the
these,
edits and then you guys will get copies with all the edits done.
So the right to install, repair, maintain, alter, and operate sanitary sewerage, drainage and water lines and other appurtenant utilities.
Everything stays the same except that weird little
Yep.
wording.
Yeah.
Here now.
Are now and hereafter.
Be used, including the right to install. I don't know, that's why they get paid the big bucks.
Exactly.
Somehow that makes a difference.
Okay.
And then number 4, he said, I'm a little troubled by sections 3 through 5. I'm trying to envision circumstances in which the city would perform snow removal or repairs prior to acceptance, but I assume they may arise. In any
We do
event,
all the
a
time.
form should be drawn up and signed by the applicant agreeing to the fee schedule and paying the fee. So,
Just mention that it may be smoother just to include, because I guess they already have a performance bond. or
Performance
something.
bond, yep.
That it may be easier to include this money into that versus having a separate money.
yep, and that's number 5.
We
Any
could.
of the above fees are incurred by the borough. They may be paid directly to the city or they can be deducted from the city bond.
Right.
I guess the problem comes, Joe, like the one we're doing here, Paul Street. They didn't want to put up a bond, or he didn't feel he could put up a bond, so he put up a lot, right? That was the way I understood
Who
it.
did that?
Paul Street.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's development.
really?
In other words, he didn't want to put the bond up, so the planning, but this is where the planning board let him put up one of his lots, which would go to the city if he didn't comply with the thing. But I believe they have since released the lot, and there's still, as you know, there's like 4 or so building lots.
They released a lot
That's what
before
I-
this,
right, again,
before
that-
the city street was accepted.
Or,
See,
or the
that's,
development is finished. I mean,
see, that's
again, and
where
that's,
the whole,
that's what I heard. I can't verify that
Yeah,
100%, but that's
okay.
what I heard, that they released that lot, which was,
see, this is where the whole,
procedure has to be laid out for all the boards, or they won't, they go about it.
yeah.
They go their own separate. way.
Everybody needs to know what the left and right hand are doing. and-
Right. Well, and that's why we said, they can either pay it directly or it can come
Or
from the
through,
bond.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so he's troubled about this, or he's,
Oh, he just said he was a little troubled because he couldn't envision a circumstance.
oh,
but
that's,
we
yeah.
that absolutely happens
We
all
have
the
had,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have had it
So,
happen,
that's
so
fine.
that's okay if he can't, we do.
Yep.
And
We
actually, it's
know.
still happening in Kingsbury Way, right? Or was one, there were some we didn't get you yet. What were they?
One of the Kingsbury hasn't been approved.
Okay.
They had-
Yeah, they
and
withdrew
somebody
that
said,
without prejudice
right,
because
so we're
they,
still
they're
plowing.
What's
still
the one up
working
on,
it.
off Hendricks, the big homes there? The one that
We had that
goes in there, I hear that one.
autumn, we did autumn.
We did autumn in Willow,
Well,
but
Oh,
Kingsbury
it's Kingsbury, it's
Fox
something
Run?
else,
Is it
Barry.
that sounds familiar.
I think Fox Run, there's a development off.
Yeah.
Somebody said
Yeah,
that. But again, I don't know, these are just, you hear people.
So then his last one is in section 5, section V, and it's 9B.
Section 5. 9. Okay. B?
Yep.
Okay.
So this says the applicant shall return the original recorded document, and he said, I think requiring either the original documentation or a receipt is preferable.
No.
So you're supposed to put or a receipt. And this is where it gets into language where I like have a kind of a tenuous, not absolutely entirely sure what Mylar has to do with any of it, but I just go with it. Okay.
So that was legal.
That was legal, and that was it. So I think actually, as far as legal goes, we did quite well. The follow-up to that is I said, well, how long does this take you to do? Because we have to have legal look at these documents every single time we do it, so we thought that might be a good thing to base the application fee on, to kind of recoup our cost to the city solicitor to looking at the street acceptances. And he said, I usually spend only an hour or perhaps two reviewing the documents, and that's $125 to $250 for the city, which I think is far too much for an application fee. But I don't know, so we can come back to that, but when we decide, when we start talking about an application fee for street acceptances, that's how much it
Well,
costs
for a
us.
developer, it's probably not that
Well,
much.
yeah, I mean, these aren't for an individual street, these are for like a planned development. So I mean, this is somebody who's building multiple lots. So you don't want to
So
unburden them. I don't
you're
know.
thinking that
I
the
wouldn't think it's that.
application fee
I'm
or?
saying that too much, right?
The actual, like, here's my application for a street acceptance,
Okay,
to have the application fee be equal or comparable to what it costs the city solicitor to do it.
Now, do we need him? What does he do when it relates to, because,
you make sure
He has to make
that
sure
all
that-
the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed and that the conveyances
Because
are.
they have to
all in
submit the
place and
deed
that-
and all that to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to make sure like all the easements are.
Right,
Okay.
and the conveyances or anything
Which is
else
what I
that are
think was the
there, all
problem
in
on
there.
Kingsbury and got pulled back, is there was a few easements that were in the right, or are not where they were.
Yeah,
Originally made.
So, I mean, in the big scheme of things, a developer would have that kind of money.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
They wouldn't be going into this with empty pockets.
Yeah.
Because the upfront fees for doing a development are just astronomical. And I don't think we should incur those costs.
yeah.
It should be wholly on the developer to absorb those costs.
I mean, a special permit fee is $150, so,
Oh, so maybe it isn't.
and that's what a lot of
mine.
people, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
It
what
isn't
Joe
mine.
Blow's cut. It's
I
like,
think-
hey,
That's what
What
you're
if-
gonna, just to put your goat.
If you wanna feel better about it, I mean, we can always call around to the other communities and see what they charge for, and we're talking the application fee, right?
Yep, the initial fee.
I mean, that would be
The
their whole
initial
fee.
application fee,
Yeah,
and you're talking 125 to 150,
250.
250? Yeah,
As you said, to do your little project, or I won't say little project,
Yeah, a
but
special
a
permit,
whole
yeah.
project
Special
of a
permit.
one homeowner is paying
Yeah,
150,
you
right?
right.
paid 150 for your special permit,
Right,
so,
and that's.
I mean,
That's
you're
for one-
talking,
special
that's for
permit.
you're
one home,
talking $1
but-
million project, by the time you put sewer, the water, doing the lot layouts with the $250 is a drop in the bucket
Right.
for them. If you're gonna go down that road to do that.
Yeah, but I feel like that's something we can, determine at the end.
Right.
But I just wanted to let you know that that was the feedback we got. So Joe got back to us, and our request to him was to really take a look at like the fees, and it was really helpful to have Jim, because he said it makes more sense to charge hourly. Because I was like, do we do it by like feet or quarter
Or, because
mile,
you're saying
or
mileage, right.
how do we do that? And he said,
Right.
Jennifer, just looking quickly, I'd like to comment on the plowing and sanding rates. The prices that the city has received from contractors for plowing city streets is between $100 and $125 per hour for this winter.
Yeah.
We should be adding around 10% for administrative tracking and billing collection on top of that figure. As far as sanding goes, we could use the same figures. It would not include the cost of the plow, but would include the cost of the sand and the salt. One thing that was not discussed or mentioned was street sweeping in the spring. Which he is right.
Yes.
We will get calls from residents saying that they pay the same taxes as others, so they would want their street swept also. But more importantly, if the street is not swept, then the sand would be allowed to settle in the
Good.
catch basins,
Yep.
causing a whole host of problems, such as poor drainage and sand in the waterways. Also, most of the time, the new drainage is connecting to existing infrastructure that is already owned by the city, causing problems in city-owned pipes. So you may want to add provisions for us to clean the basins and charge the owner or require the owner to do it. Cost for sweeping and catch basin cleaning, again, would be in the $125 per hour range. Hopes this helps. Joe?
That would be easy enough to just set up a rate schedule,
Yep.
and that's, you know.
Yeah, and that's what we left open in the document.
Yeah,
is It's like, you know, this is maybe what we have, and then it would change every
Yeah.
fiscal year, you know.
The rate schedule
If it
is
needed
set
to.
for 2014 through 2016, do a 2-year, and then have it reviewed every 2 years.
Just cost go up, same.
Right, right. Make the
So-
adjustments.
Salary.
I think this would be good to
That's
add in,
excellent, yeah, that's
you
excellent.
know. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a note to add the sanding and catch
Yeah,
basin,
catch basin cleaning.
basin cleaning.
I'm just so excited, this is gonna be such a good document when it's done, it's gonna be so comprehensive.
Nice.
And there's not gonna be any gray areas, there's not gonna be anything like, well, I was never told that, or I didn't know about that, or, you know, no,
Right.
yes, you did.
Although what's gonna be hard to control is, are we going to say, or are you gonna say in there that there's no longer can put up 10 chickens as it has to be cold cash, because that developer sounded was gonna do a lot, and then who then says at one point, I'm gonna release the lot before the road is accepted? I mean, is that subjective, or is that? you
No,
know,
that's
still gonna be out there?
That's gonna be in part of this whole procedure is that the performance bonds or whatever should not be released until it comes to city council, and city council says, okay, yep, they've all checked off on it, it's come to us, when we make the vote tonight, we make the vote to also release the bond or performance bond money back to the contractor, because now the street's been accepted. It's no longer your responsibility, so you now get your performance bond money back. That money, or anything else that's attached to that agreement in the beginning, shouldn't be released back to, this is my feeling,
Yeah.
back to the contractor developer until we've accepted those streets
Right.
and they're under our authority.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I
So-
think, go a little what Joe's saying, though, I think it almost has to be a bond, because how would you, if you're holding a lot?
Well, yeah.
And we incur all these expenses, do we then have to go and sell the lot and
Yeah.
Well,
take our,
yeah.
I guess, I mean, just would add another layer. of
I was
cost.
just a little
But to me, if
thrown
you're
back by
building
that.
a,
What?
if you're building a development, you should put up a bond.
A performance
Right.
bond, yeah, I mean, when a contractor comes in to me and, well, I'm not a contractor, but, yeah, all my contractors have to issue with me, they have to issue an insurance bond with me for the school. You know, they have to, this is our insurance bond, and, and they
Right.
have to come up to the certain amount of it.
They can't say, we'll put up a bus.
Well, I
No.
think that's,
No, they can't, I don't want a bus,
Yeah.
I want insurance.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that kind of threw me when you said that about
Yeah, and that's again what I.
accepting that, but that's why this is so important, because this won't allow them to do that.
right.
This will say, no, the only thing that's acceptable under our street protocols is a performance bond.
Well, and I think the big picture item is that just actually acknowledging that you will be financially responsible for this. Because,
Yeah,
the goal with this document, I mean, this is money loser for the city.
absolutely,
Big time.
absolutely.
In a couple of different ways, because we have to get these street accepted so that we get more money from the state to fix potholes.
Yeah.
Because we have these streets, that's the next phase is,
And currently.
Jim's already started with an inventory.
And
And to
currently.
like really get an inventory of what we have, because I think right now the state thinks we have 84 miles of road. So that's how they figure out the arithmetic for what we get. for
Yeah, they
repairs.
go by mileage.
And we actually have more.
So every mile we add, it increases our state aid.
Mhm.
And currently, there's no incentive for a lot of these builders to have it accepted. I mean, as we
No.
can see,
No,
some of these
because-
developments that are 16 years old.
Right.
Yeah, and because we've just taken up the torch to take care of those roads,
Yeah.
um, No, we
Well,
can
then we
just,
have to, it's not like we're not gonna plow them, because what if a fire truck needs to
yeah,
get
I
down
mean,
there
the
and
taxpayers,
like, we
yeah,
have to
I
do
mean,
it.
so this,
It's the
this,
right thing to do. but-
this is gonna shore up a lot of that gray area. And, you know, make
Still
everybody
like
accountable.
lava.
It will make them
Great
accountable.
book. Jesus, it's too good.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first 3 pages of this document, and this is the first, I'm gonna go a little bit slow because Joe's with us and
Mhm.
this is the first
So
time.
back
So,
to- Why can't I can't say that much on it.
okay, so Jessica wrote her notes right in it, so we'll just run
Oh,
through it.
Okay, good.
Well, I mean, it's
That's all right,
fine, that's,
yeah.
I actually asked that. I actually wanted the document back because, you know, then we end up with all these documents out there. So
Yep.
then I have to keep buying those bloody folders.
Mine's already ripped. I've got it
That's why we
overstuffed.
can't have nice notes. So
So
the first section is the street acceptance procedures, and this is basically what would be handed to an applicant. Be like, this is how it's done.
Mhm.
This is what you need to kind of get in place. So, this was the section that I wanted help from the planning board on.
Mhm.
And they basically asked, she's got a bunch of questions on here that are all the questions that we kind of had for the planning board. You know what I mean? So it's like, when is it placed on agenda, after the planning board approval, parallel approval? You know, need documentation from the city, and is this to include an application packet? It's basically all the questions that we were hoping that the planning board would
Yeah.
answer. So,
Mhm.
um,
So I don't think that we can address that until she's here.
Well,
you
and
said she's
also,
coming at 6:30?
the other thing,
Probably
That's
not that.
probably
I
not
doubt
happening.
that, it's 6:58.
so the other thing is that this first section, we knew that this was probably gonna be the last section that we worked at.
Right,
Because we had to get everything else in order, so then it makes sense that it goes from this department to this department.
right.
So, let's move that section away, since that was,
We knew the procedures were going to be the most
yeah, we had to figure out
difficult piece of
what we
it.
had to put in there.
Right,
And then we can figure out the most efficient way to move it through the system. Okay, so here's the documentation. Number 2, street acceptance documentation. We got an okay on the first line.
okay.
Wait, okay.
So, we need an application for a completion request to the planning department relative to the subdivision. What that is that the subdivision basically comes forward with their application, and they have to complete that request. This also needs to be made simultaneously to the Board of Public Works, so that everybody knows that this is happening. This is happening.
So her question
So
was?
she wrote, is this the certificate of compliance referred to in section 5? No. Should this go to everyone, not just planning department?
Well, it's not, it's going to planning and DPW.
Right, so that's no. Don't put the burden on the applicant. What is the point of processing fee if we're not processing info?
What?
No, the processing fee is.
It's
to
an
pay for the-
application fee.
Right. And that's to pay for legal fees.
Actual legal fees.
So then we have that the applicant sends a memo to the DPW requesting a final punch list of outstanding items to be completed within the subdivision. And she wrote punch list should already be completed. That is not what we have discovered and what's going
Mhm.
on, but we do, that has to be like their first move is to talk to the DPW and be like, is there anything else we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny that I was thinking, you know how people use those Google Docs where you can put a
Mhm.
document and multiple people can access it? It's too bad when these multiple place things go on, you couldn't have that document being accessed by DPW and they
You know, you
sign
throw it
off
up in
and
the,
then
you
they.
throw it up in the cloud.
Yeah. And
Well,
so
that's why we
I wonder-
were really deliberate about how we were putting this together. And in
Mhm.
fact, the process was, we thought about that a lot. And that's
Mhm.
why, you know, I printed it out, I handed it to everybody. I was like, make notes on it and then come back. And then this is what we've been doing for the process. I mean, we've been having 2-hour really boring meetings.
They haven't been boring,
You know?
actually, they've been very informative.
Right, but,
We're
and
all
then,
learning. as
and then
we're
we
going along.
compile all the notes, and then a new document goes
Mhm.
out, and okay, so here it is now, everybody's okay with it, and then we do the next tiered system.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I
So
mean, I
this is-
agree
this
with
is
you,
Working
but
on the
not
second
everybody
draft.
has like,
Mm.
you know, this was just a first draft, like really rough.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, boy, it'd be nice if.
Maybe eventually we can get there. I mean, at the school department, we use Google.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
use Google for our email, and we use Google Docs, and we use the cloud, and we're doing all of that.
And
at
I
the
was
school
actually kind of
department.
deliberately staying away from electronic copies, because
Mhm.
then you made notes on an electronic copy, and then that
Mhm.
person doesn't get
Right.
one and stuff, but if we could
Yeah,
all
if we
share
keep
the
it
document,
with,
that would
we
be
keep it
great.
with one person right now to just,
Right. Although someone, it'd be nice if someone called and said, hey, where is the status of that? That Barbara could look up, okay, it looks like we're missing this and this.
Mhm.
You know, if you wanna,
I've written it in a Google document. I mean, I could just add people to it, invite them. And I actually have 5 different documents, one for each section. I didn't even put it all together.
You're talking about when we actually have this process in place.
yeah,
Right.
As opposed
when
to
we finish.
develop-
Yeah, yeah, I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were
No,
talking
that's what I said, I
about.
think Joe's
When
talking
we
about when this
finish
is,
it.
when we
Yeah.
finish it,
Oh, yeah.
Joe's saying, could there be a
Instead
place
of
where?
having these papers going here and here and here and here, it'd
Yep.
be nice to have the paper on the cloud and the department heads access it and do what they need to do and then back out of it.
And then you could go to the document and say, well, what isn't and what hasn't been completed.
Right.
Then we'd have to
Yeah,
get
so-
Barry involved.
I know.
We'd love to get there, but
Right.
people are
Maybe
very
able to.
resistant, and maybe eventually, that's a great idea, eventually we might get there.
Because you talked about the schools, I sit on some superintendent's committee there, and she has a thing that she sends around, and you can put in like your dates, like for a meeting when there's a
Right.
multiple bunch of people, you put in
Well,
the dates,
actually,
and
I
then it's
mean-
all accumulated, and then she can see who's available, so.
We
you know,
actually
it's
have a shared
doable,
Google
easy.
Calendar. I just signed up for City Hall, like if you get on the meetings. Like Barbara sent that thing out today, and I'm like, it's already on there.
Hmm.
Like you can just add it as a
Oh,
calendar.
really, you can add it on to your Google
Yeah.
Docs?
Well, it's,
Okay.
it's
Wow.
the
Your
calendar,
Google account?
yep.
So all those city meetings will show up in your calendar?
And all those
Nice.
city meetings show up on my calendar.
Wow.
How come I keep putting them in?
You're chump.
If I hit and highlight the dates
I'm
that
just
she's
saying.
put on these things,
No, I-
it will go into
I'm
my
glad to say
calendar.
that.
Then the
My
mayor
iPad.
meeting at 2, you
Yeah.
know, like,
And then my
I keep
iPad
hoping
shares with
somebody will
my,
put like,
iPhone,
you know,
yeah.
details in
they
there,
share,
but-
they talk to each other.
But yeah,
At
every,
least you got the meeting.
And they
So then
talk
you
with
get, like,
bills,
every
and
single
it really
meeting.
That's
irritates
nice,
them.
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
happened to find it on the website recently. I was looking at the website.
On what, cloud or cloud on, or is it in the cloud, or is it?
I was looking for the meeting time for something else and saw that there's a shared Google and calendar, and you can just add it and then you get all the meetings, so.
Wow. I have to run, unfortunately, but great work. Give me the new document.
Why, are you having trouble sleeping, Chuck?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. See you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so then she wrote, the applicant submits, they have a Mylar, and she said, why Mylar are we filing?
Are we
Was that D?
filing,
A miler of
At
as-built plans and layout
that
plans.
registry? Is that an app? Are we filing?
Can I take a look? Can I
Sure.
take a look, maybe? Why miler are we filing? It looks like pre.
Registered deeds, I don't know. All right, so we'll ask that question. So then, statement of compliance from the chief, that seems to be fine, and then add the contact info. So H, highway superintendent, should be city engineer, she's correct.
So under 8 should be city engineer.
Yeah.
Yep, that would make sense.
So then K, which is a deed and gift of trust for open space, is, if applicable, running to the inhabitants of it. It said not all open space parcels are required to be city ownership. We allow in zoning for homeowner agreements and land trust.
If applicable.
So that means if applicable.
If applicable, it doesn't,
Right. So that,
doesn't necessarily say have to, it's only if
so
it's.
no changes. So the copy of the homeowners association, she said, should also be on file with the registry of deeds, so we'll just add that.
Where is it?
M, a
M.
copy of the homeowners association instrument. If,
Should be registered with,
should also be on file with the registry of deeds. I'm having lunch with Mary tomorrow. Ask her.
there you go, perfect.
And then N, she's saying, why is this needed? Won't these change over time as properties are sold? And this was also something that made it through legal, so
Keep it,
keep it.
yeah, except for the section 22,
Right.
but keep it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna make a note that this was okay with legal.
Okay with Attorney Fitzgibbon, passed his litmus test.
Alrighty.
This is the one
We are now on,
we're
what,
doing the-
3?
are now.
Yep, so now we're on
Requirements.
special requirements. All property taxes owed to the city, proof of this payment must be provided by the applicant to the planning department. And she said this should be part of the application package. So yes, yes, this is part of the requirements and part of, all the requirements are part of the application package.
Right, this is part of the,
Right,
so document is part of it.
So you'll need to update this document every year. Is there a way to frame this so that the language is more flexible?
Is she
and
talking
that's in
about
regards
fiscal
to
year
the
That was at the
2014
plowing.
rates?
Yeah, and we've already discussed that we knew that was gonna, that's why we wrote fiscal year 2014.
Right.
So that seems to be fine. Moving on.
Oh, on 5, we did put performance bond. On 5, it's deducted from the city held bond. Should we just make that the performance bond?
Yeah,
And take out city held and just make it
Just put-
performance? Yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
okay. Every time you look at it, you get a new set of eyes.
I know, it's good, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so now number 1 where it says following street acceptance by city council. So this is following, the developer brings the original recorded deeds and easements and original Mylar and endorsed plans to the planning department.
Oh, to the endorsed plans,
Right.
to the, okay.
So she said, I'm not paying for filing at registry, I don't want Mylar.
So,
So I just need some clarification on
what
that.
does she want?
Well, I mean, technically, she's not paying for anything.
No, and she's not filing either.
No.
She did,
I mean,
so,
is it
so
that the
instead
developer's
of,
gonna bring all the stuff?
instead of the original Mylar, what does she want for the original endorsed
She said, I think
plans?
originals should be filed with the city clerk, I'd prefer copies.
Who files the plans now? Indeed. Who does it now? So that's the question. Where do they go now?
It's the applicant. Applicant shall record the original.
Right,
Mylar.
I think it's
Applicant
just
shall
that
copy
after
dates.
After
We
they're
approve it.
recorded and everything.
he
then
has to bring back,
They have to bring back.
Yeah,
you're saying he has to
copies.
bring copies back.
So
Yeah.
who?
But you're saying who
now
records
gets
those
them
copies?
now?
Right, is it the city clerk or is it
Who
planning?
gets them now when they're recorded? Who receives them?
She said, I think the original should be filed with the city clerk.
She thinks, but who's getting them? I mean, in this process that we're proposing, when a developer finishes everything, records everything, where's it coming now?
So here's what it says, the applicant shall record the original
Right.
Mylar and the necessary documentation at the Hampshire County. Applicant's attorney notifies the planning when the recording is done. Applicant will return the original documentation from the registry of deeds of the planning department or receipt, that's what we got from the attorney. Applicant shall file the original deeds and easements with the city clerk.
Oh, so it gets filed with the city clerk.
I don't know what she thinks she's,
I guess it wouldn't hurt to ask Barbara how it's
Yeah.
handled now.
well, and actually, that's really what we wanted the
'Cause I'm just trying,
planning department to
In the
do.
very, so she just got ahead of herself then and didn't read through
Yeah,
all the way
that's
to the
probably.
end. She asked that question before she ran all the way through the end,
right,
and then probably forgot that she had written it down.
So then,
and said, oh.
you know, those certificate of compliances, which we haven't developed sample forms for those yet, so that's no. And then how is this section different from the street acceptance procedures? So those are the guidelines, the procedures, which is exactly the same
The
question we
guidelines,
had.
yeah.
So the procedure is basically just shows how it's done. So she has a lot of questions about the procedure, which is what
These first
we
two.
actually had a lot of questions about. And we were hoping the planning department,
I mean, we really have to sit down with her because,
yeah,
you know, to just try to.
Yeah, we have to sit down
To
with
try to
her so
determine
that-
what she means by a, you know, one-line
Right.
comment or a three or four word comment is tough. I mean, some of
Right.
them aren't, but, you know, some might. Maybe the next, we can have another meeting and, you know, at her convenience or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I think that we need to definitely continue it and have a meeting with her and sit down with her. So we can review her questions and her comments. So she can kind of,
This is her final word?
no, this seems to be like from the beginning, and it's just kind of, it's just hilarious to me, because it's like, this process is really confusing, it's currently drafted, it's like, it said, would you please take a look at this? There should be one packet submitted with all information, then disseminated by one point of contact, who's the main point of contact? Which is the question that we had, it's like, do we want to have it be the planning department, or do we want to have it come back onto the city clerk again?
these are all the
And then you'll have
questions.
this, she'll say, would this work better as a flow chart? I'm like, there's a bloody flow chart.
There's that flow chart already, again.
You and her with the flow charts.
I
Do it.
just, you know, I'm a visual kind
I
of
know,
person.
I
You
know.
like the
Can I tell
checklist
ya?
too?
We had
Yeah, I
a
like the
checklist as
checklist.
well.
Checklist flow, either one will work.
Either one you'll take.
Either
Okay.
one.
All right, so why don't I rewrite this
Okay.
with those notes added? But basically, actually, there doesn't seem to be a lot of real big changes.
Not major changes, it's more
No.
just kind of interpretation of some of the.
Yeah, and I think
where
that can
things
be
go.
cleared up with, yeah.
So those are the only people that you were waiting to hear from, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would, you know what, I'd like to have something from the planning board saying that they at least talked about it, that they at least looked at it, that they had a conversation about it. I mean, it's just another thing where,
Right. I think the,
I mean, just saying, like, they just agree with me. It's like, there was no conversation? Nothing? There was no?
We could also ask for a joint meeting if we wanted to with the planning board.
Well, that's smart, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's go through the document page by page with the planning department.
We can ask them, we can be put on their agenda, or they can come and be put on our agenda, whichever.
Whatever's easiest. But yeah, I would like that. Because I think the more people you have involved in the process, the better the document is.
Mhm.
All right, so let's schedule a joint meeting with the planning department.
See, this current planning board, and I'm trying to think what the issue was. They've kind of taken this new thing, they don't want to weigh in, like, with their opinions, and, you know, to me, isn't that kind of what they should be doing? I mean, I guess, again, I don't sit on their board, and I'm trying to think what the issue was, and they said that that's their new, you know, because a lot of times things will go like what, you know, like what the planning board, you know, I wish I could think of it offhand, so it's happened within the last month or so. I'll think about it, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying, that when you approach them, it may be one of these, we don't want to really. Well, I guess if they don't want to weigh in, then they get what they get. But this is their opportunity.
Well, I mean.
Same with the planner, I mean, it's their opportunity.
Yeah, because once we accept this, and we put it as a city council, and we say, this is the document that everyone will follow. And the city council is saying that this is the document. Because we basically oversee all of the departments. They're gonna have to live with it. So you would conceivably think that they would wanna be in the upfront of it.
Right, so if they see something that's really going to burden them, that they would
Yeah, that
speak now,
that they
because
feel
once
is,
it's approved.
once it's
too late.
approved, it's gonna
Then
be
it's,
the law
then
of the
it's being up
land.
to them to try to come back and,
Yeah, and you know, personally, I think, speaking for myself, I think I'm gonna be pretty resistant to having them come back and say, well,
geez, maybe we should.
especially if they didn't give any of the input in the
Right.
beginning when they were giving
It's one
us.
thing if they gave
all of
input
the
and it isn't
opportunity.
working, and you say, well, geez, maybe you were right in the end, we should have done it, what you said, but if they're not gonna say anything, then
Yeah.
they should own what we give them.
Exactly, that's how my thought process is going, so, but yeah, so, do you want to send Jessica an email and say that we wanna get together and, okay. All right,
Yeah. You know, we will incorporate the notes from all the departments that we did hear from. And we'll just go through page by page with the planning department, the same as we do here, you
Mhm.
know? Because I think, I mean, you gotta sit down and read it.
well, yeah, I mean,
You know, so.
have they been given, I know she emailed.
I have nothing in writing,
We
I have no
nothing in writing
minutes,
from
I
them
have
or anything
no,
else, so, Yeah,
I
I-
do not know what happened at the meeting.
I think prudently, this is, yeah, we asked for it.
I thought we, you know,
Yeah, I know.
I made a very nice, clear request.
All right, so, it's, we've gone over everything over the agenda.
Yeah, we just haven't scheduled another
And
meeting.
just need the
I mean,
next meeting.
Do you want to do that now, or, actually, let me email the planning department and see
Let's
when they
see.
want to meet, because
Right,
that's basically our next meeting.
So the next meeting will be contingent on the,
desire or lack thereof of the planning board.
contingent on the, planning of the next meeting, the next joint meeting. Planning of the joint
Right.
meeting.
Well, and it's the second situation where the board has just gone, whatever that memo said, we're submitting that, say, well, I don't know,
Okay.
that works. But we do need to schedule a meeting when Jim Gracia gets back to look at that street acceptance, that new
For
one,
the Paul
Street
Street extension, I think it was.
extension.
We're
We're way in on the meeting.
well, let's,
And then we also need to talk to, we have to Holland, the chief of police, to
Well-
look at the signs too.
yeah, and that's great, but let's get the meeting with the joint meeting set up, and then maybe we can meet like a half an hour, 45 minutes before that.
Brilliant.
So it's on one
On
night,
one night, so we have a meeting.
So smart.
sometimes.
Okay.
So,
See, Joy used to give me those tips when she sat next to me, and she decided she wanted to move.
I know. Nathan's hilarious. I'm never
You
moving
have-
my
You
seat.
have JPS.
I just kid you.
It's okay.
I just kid you.
All right.
I am not the all-knowing.
I would
not
accept
everything.
a
I just-
motion to adjourn.
Okay, I
Second.
will second, oh,
Oh, I'll
okay.
say.
Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a
To
second.
adjourn.
Any further discussion?
No?
Can I get an amen?
Yes.
Yes, I vote to adjourn.
Me too. Here, I'll show you.
Motion
Tape.
pass.
Okay.